Good afternoon, Vanessa.
Hi Gavin, nice to meet you.
And thank you very much for your book. I'm very interested to ask you some questions. You may know that I've recently suggested that Guernsey should have a goal, and that goal should be that it is the healthiest and happiest community in the world by 2026. So I'm very interested to know from you what you think happiness is.
Well, I was very excited to hear about your goal because I think happiness is a really important issue. It's a really serious thing. Happiness, we may think of happiness as something that's kind of pleasure in the moment and just a fleeting sort of fluffy thing. But actually there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, because when we're happier, people are physically healthier, they're less likely to get depressed, of course, they're more likely to be engaged and productive at work, they're more likely to take care of themselves and be more things like financially responsible, they're more likely to contribute in their communities. And happiness it's not just pleasure in the moment, it's also about having a sense of fulfillment and purpose and making the best of who we are. So there's a lot more to happiness really than perhaps meets the eye.
What would you say to those people who say that happiness is fundamentally a selfish act? Would you subscribe to that at all?
Well, the science actually contradicts that quite emphatically, because for several reasons. Firstly, if we're happier, we are much more likely to volunteer and help other people. We're more likely to be compassionate and kind towards other people. And there's also some really interesting research which comes out of it was done a big study done in Framingham on the east coast of the States, and they looked at how happiness spread through real social networks, and they found that how I am, my kind of mood state, doesn't just impact the people that I'm in direct contact with, but the people they're in direct contact with and the people they're in direct contact with. So I'm impacting not just my friends' happiness, but my friends' friends' friends, and they're impacting me. I mean, we can all get that, if you've ever worked with a colleague who's really grumpy and always in a bad mood, I mean, we can all probably identify with that. But it really has a ripple effect, a statistically significant ripple effect. So I don't think this means we have to be happy-clappy all the time, but I think we need to be aware that our happiness is affecting other people and know what we can do to manage that. So if we can be angry if we need to be angry, but we're not angry inappropriately, because it's a shared responsibility, happiness. So is that anything but a selfish thing, I'd say?
And just picking up on that, and how can we make ourselves? How can we be happier?
Well, this is because a lot of people say, actually, aren't you just born happy, or you're just not happy? You're glass half full, glass half empty. Well, science is showing that's not strictly the case. I mean, yes, there are a lot of factors that can affect our happiness, and not all of those are in our control. We may not be able to. We can't change our genes. We can't change our early upbringing, which do have an influence. But there are a significant number of things that are within our control, our behaviours, our daily actions and habits, and our ways of thinking. And the really exciting thing is that over the last 2 decades, science has really started to explode with evidence about what really makes a difference. That's what we've summarised in the 10 keys to happier living, the sort of 10 areas that we can take all sorts of different actions in to help ourselves and indeed other people be happy.
And what do you think that the government can do to make the community happier?
Well, that's very interesting. So I think this, as we get more understanding of the research and the difference these factors make, I think they have implications, for governments across the world. I mean, firstly, we can teach these skills to children so that they grow up with them, and the skills that make us happier also help us cope when times are tough. They help us be more innovative as well. So we can embed them in our education systems. We can teach them to adults. These are things that adults can learn as well, at whatever age. I mean, we at Action Happiness, we've worked with people from all different parts of the community, and these have made a difference. And we can put them in place in our workplaces, and we can start thinking about what does it mean as we're. I did a paper for my local library in my local area in London they were going to close the libraries, for example, the little community libraries, because there was one big central one. But actually, if we look at the keys that enable people to feel good and function well, which is what we mean by happiness, we found that actually these little community libraries were ones that old people could get to. They help reduce the feeling of isolation, and they might not travel to a central library. And we know that isolation is a killer. It can lead to depression and literally make people physically ill. So that's a good reason why we should keep libraries open. And it's one of the few places that doesn't cost people money, and old and young interact, and it helps people learn all of the things that are real ingredients in happiness. So that was an example of where thinking about what the keys to happiness were helped to change a decision that on paper looked like it made economic sense to centralise all the libraries. But when we looked at the well-being impact, that would have bigger ramifications across the community and downstream for things like physical health. So I hope that does that make sense?
Yes, yes. No, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Do you want more? Or